For me to know that people cared was healing. I now realize that wellness is not just face masks and bath bombs. Touch the untouchable, shake the unshakable, break the unbreakable. It's Hovey, baby.
Hi, and welcome to Noire's Wellness Series, where we amplify the voices of Black people and people of color, sharing their stories of resilience, vulnerability, and wellness. I'm Jessica Brown, founder of Noire, Therapy and Wellness, based in Washington, D.C. And today I'm joined by an incredible friend of mine, Cyrina Yarbrough, sharing her story of building her newest brand, a demi-fine jewelry brand, GlasgowPlace.
Cyrina Yarbrough is a multifaceted serial entrepreneur, carving her space in the jewelry industry with her newest venture, GlasgowPlace, a demi-fine jewelry company specializing in timeless pieces rooted in luxury and legacy. Cyrina, a Los Angeles native, graduated from California State University Northridge, garnering her a degree in multimedia communications and a Certificate of Entrepreneurship from Cornell University. Cyrina's passion for business promotion and growth translate into her experience as a marketing and customer experience executive for national and global brands.
So, Cy, thank you so much for joining us today on the Wellness Series.
Thank you for having me.
I've known you for years, so I call you Cy, so I hope you don't mind if I call you Cy.
Not at all.
On the series. But I'm so excited to have you because I've been able to watch you kind of grow through so many of your entrepreneurial journeys and different businesses that have blossomed. But I really want to hone in on this newest venture, GlasgowPlace.
Yes.
Your high-end jewelry line.
Yes.
So can you share with us kind of the inspiration behind that and, budding projects and things that you're doing with it?
Absolutely. Well, as you mentioned, this is not my first rodeo when it comes to entrepreneurship, but I think it's the most meaningful. So as you kind of grow and learn, you kind of realize that when you're doing these entrepreneurial ventures, you need to find something that is really true to you. And so for me, GlasgowPlace, a jewelry company, is very, very true to me. So going kind of all the way back when my mother and I, so my father passed when I was younger, when my mother and I were living in this small one-bedroom apartment, she did everything that she could to make small luxuries matter. And what I didn't realize at the time is that she would always give me jewelry. And some of that jewelry even came from the pawn shop. And it was just her way of giving me an opportunity to have something that was of value without going out of her way to break the bank, without us living outside of our means, and just giving me something that mattered, something that could last. And so that's one half of the story. Fast forward, when I first moved from LA to the DC area, it was actually like Baltimore, Columbia. The first job that I took was at Pandora Jewelry, and I started off as a temp. I was only supposed to be there for 2 weeks, and I kept going, and they liked my work, and they brought me on for a little longer, and then a little longer, and then they were like, well, you want to come on full time? And so I watched the company grow from being in, we were kind of all over the place. Some people being in a garage, some people being in an office, and what felt almost like overnight, it definitely was not, but what felt very, very quick, we blew up. We were a regional popular jewelry company to being this global, national, traded on the NASDAQ. Like, I got hired full time and they were like, also sign this NDA, we're going public. And watching that company blossom and grow and be a part of that, it was almost obvious, kind of like, why haven't I thought of this before? Amidst all of those other ventures along the way, the consulting, which I still enjoyed because I've done marketing my entire career, but amongst the consulting and other smaller projects, this one felt not only right for my personal life, but also right for my professional life. So it's okay to say, wasn't great at that. It's okay to focus on this. And it's also okay to struggle. That struggle is something we don't see a lot. And so when you are feeling that struggle, you have a tendency to feel like you're doing something wrong. And it's that fight or flight. So if I'm doing this wrong, let me get out of it before it gets worse. And so that's kind of what my entrepreneurial journey felt like all the way up until now, until I'm just like, you know what? All right, I did a bunch of stuff and now I'm not going to do those things anymore, and I'm going to struggle, and I'm going to take my potential customer base along that journey with me, as well as my friends and family, because a lot of that is me reteaching them who I am now. And a part of that is me being transparent of, here are my struggles as an entrepreneur, and they don't look the way you thought they did. It's not just, oh, Cyrina's got all these businesses and all these side hustles and she's just easy to do. No, that's not true. This is a new me, and I want everyone to understand that new me cannot be overextended because it's hard.
Yeah.
And that's not something I've done before. And so that's a huge part of the journey.
So I'm gonna go a little bit deep. You know, it's the therapist in me.
We have tissue, so okay, I'm good with that.
I'm gonna go a little bit deep. What were the stories that you were telling yourself about your abilities and the things that you were capable of when you were faced with those experiences of rejection, or I don't want to say failure, but when things weren't going as planned?
Can I curse?
Go ahead.
Okay, so early on, well, I have two sides of me. Part of me is an arrogant dickhead. So the arrogant dickhead is like, well, this is bullshit and everybody else is trash. So move on and go and get another business because these motherfuckers are dumb. And the other part of me is like, well, but it does suck that didn't work, no? Because it didn't work and you really wanted it to work. You were excited about it.
Yeah.
And so it was one of those things where I kind of had to suppress and keep pressing forward. And it wasn't until I got a little older and more things about mental health started to come out and be more accessible that I started to have the thoughts of, well, what is it that's really happening here? Like, how do you really feel? And then I started to have, of course, social media comes out, and then you have those feelings of seeing people kind of eclipse you, and you wonder, like, okay, well, what am I doing wrong? And what is it about them? And I kind of felt a little like Kanye West early on when, I think it was the second album. I think it may have been the second album when he was like, man, these niggas that much better than me. I felt like that. Like, I'm seeing the people and they're not better, they're just different. So
Right.
What is it? Like, what is it that I'm not doing? What is it that people don't get from me? Because I'm good at this, but I'm not getting the recognition that I felt like I deserved. And so it was really ego driven. And so there was a blow to my ego. And so there was the battle of the two, like, but that sucks. They're stupid. They don't know.
Yeah.
And so it was that constant battle. And eventually that dissipated, and I just kind of had to get to a point where I took time to step all the way back and really did not participate very much in social media. And so I'm just now getting back in the space of being on social media, just now getting back in the space of being able to cheer for people I care about and really genuinely mean it, because I don't have that ego in the back of my head wondering why them and not me. And that was something I was afraid to admit, because it wasn't jealousy, it wasn't envy, it was just confusion.
I love that, because I think, especially with the height of social media, we are creatures of comparison.
Yeah.
So we are constantly looking at all these influencers and all these people doing things who have, you know, positions of leverage or money or whatever it has, or, you know, just followers.
Yeah.
And you're just kind of like, okay, well, how do I get there? Right? And we skip the process. We just see what we have and we see what we want, and we want it to be like, boom.
Yeah.
But it doesn't happen that way.
Yeah.
And I love that you touched on, you know, the emotional process and the emotional part of that journey. And what did that look like for you? Because you mentioned being in a place now where you can cheer people on and, you know, go you, period. But it wasn't always like that. So what did that journey look like? And how were you able to move yourself from a place from then until now?
Gift and a curse of loneliness, isolation. Sometimes being alone with yourself is scary because it's lonely being alone with yourself. But at the same time, you start to ask yourself questions. You start to get honest with yourself because you see yourself go through all those different phases. You see yourself even when you don't physically look the way you expect yourself to look. Like there have been times where I've looked in the mirror and the woman staring back at me was very different from the woman I had in my head. And I'm like, you don't look like how I thought you did. And so then we go through that journey. And so it's a lot of peeling back all the layers of who I am, what I feel, what I look like that day, what I feel like that day. And so isolation and loneliness were definitely huge players in that journey. And quiet time, and just eventually it went from feeling lonely. Alone time eventually went from being lonely to being, I don't know the right word that I'm looking for, but I went from feeling less lonely and being comfortable being alone. And
yeah,
I started
from lonely to just being alone.
Alone, yeah, that's exactly it. It took away a lot of the codependency that I had of being the center of attention or being out and about with friends to drown away whatever thoughts I was thinking or whatever distractions. It really got me to a point where I was able to check myself whenever I felt like something wasn't right, whether it was me being a bitch or me being stubborn or whatever that looks like. And also to the point where I was able to say, you know, if something is going wrong, I don't need something shiny to distract me. I'm able to now just deal with it and deal with all the feelings that come along with it without feeling like I need to be codependent on anything. And codependency for me was never, like, I don't have an addictive personality, so I didn't necessarily, you know, cling to one thing and use that as my end all be all, but I definitely would distract myself with other projects. Hence the reason why I would go through these ups and downs and woes of all these different businesses to distract myself from something that didn't go right the first time. So it's like, this business fails, start a new business. This one fails, start a new one. And so now I'm getting to the point where I'm just like, mourn the loss of all of those businesses, and not just the businesses, but also my expectations, those failures, those disappointments, and then start something that you feel passionate about. And I didn't know what I was going to feel passionate about until I found it.
I love that you mentioned that, kind of the ebb and flow of starting a new business and then something goes wrong and then it's throw it away, start something new, throw it away, start something new. Or maybe not even throw it all the way away, but your focus shifts.
Yes.
And it almost sounds like running, right? Like you're running from something that maybe in all of these businesses, there's a common thread, that something is happening that you're not addressing.
Yeah.
And it keeps coming up, and it keeps coming up, and it keeps coming up. And I'm a firm believer that if you don't face the issue head on and actually learn how to cope with it and learn what it is, it's going to manifest itself in different ways until you learn that lesson.
The putting in the work, that was the undoing of all that childhood trauma of you're good at everything, so you don't have to try. And so when I would start it and it would, you know, do its thing, and then all of a sudden sales start ticking off or clients start dissipating, I don't have to try. Remember, you're good at everything. Okay, well, let me move on to something else. And so now it's like, no. You have to try, you have to plan. You can't just fall into it and all of a sudden you're good at everything. In general, in the world, no one cares.
Yeah.
So that was a hard pill to swallow, that no one cares how good you were at this or that, or how popular you were, or what teams you played for, or nobody cares.
I love that you're using the word were, right? Because that insinuates that we're living in the past.
Yeah.
We're trying to relive our glory days. And it's kind of the reason why I stopped doing Throwback Thursdays. Because I'm like, I don't want to continue to highlight what I used to do and who I used to be. Like, I am beautiful, powerful, bold, and brave in the moment that I am now. And this is who I want to amplify. I don't need to live in the past and talk about who I used to be. That person made me who is standing in front of you.
I'm gonna have to steal that because that's really great. That's like, I mean, there are some things that, maybe I forgot to share, but in general, I love that. I really, really, really do, because I never thought about it that way. But that is what people are doing. They're living in their glory days of this one time when I was X, Y, and Z place. Don't forget,
right? I
was here.
Right. And I think a lot of that stems from, and a lot of what you hit on too, is that need for external validation. And that's probably why Instagram is so popular, right? Because we get that validation from likes and followers and views and reposts. And it's, as an entrepreneur, like, we understand how necessary all of that is, but it's so damn annoying. You mentioned a little bit earlier how you had to cope through kind of finding your own voice and finding your authenticity and not being influenced by things that are outside of your core values. What did some of those coping mechanisms and strategies look like for you?
Watching people overcome adversity somehow gave me comfort to kind of know that I wasn't alone. And then from that point, it kind of opened me up to conversation with other people about what was going on. So one of the first conversations I had were with my 2 former roommates, and I sent them a text message in the group and was just like, hey guys, I am not okay. And I don't know what's wrong. I am not ready to talk about it, but I just need you guys to check on me from time to time. And they were like, we got you. No questions. They didn't ask me anything beyond that. It was just, we got you. And for me to know that people cared was healing, because, I'm sorry.
I apologize.
But even though I know that I'm not on an island, I know that I have family and friends who care about me, there's something very different when you're not forced to explain your trauma or your emotions. When you're just in the position to be like, I'm not okay. I just need you to check on me. That's it. And they're like, we got you. And that's all I needed. That was honestly all I needed. And it started this journey of me being transparent. I've not always been transparent in general. I've been transparent with individuals, with certain people in safe spaces where my image was still protected, but I'm finally in a space where I'm crying on camera. And that was never something I would have done before. I was the type of person where you keep it together and you move forward and you cry in the shower with all the water, and then that's it. And then you get out of the shower and you leave your feelings to go down the drain. And part of that was because that's how my mom was. She was tough, but to her detriment, I think. I think that when I look at my mom and my aunt and just women in general of that era, my heart kind of breaks for them to have all these balls that you're juggling constantly. You're juggling all these balls and you have to keep them all in the air, and a lot of times they have to do it by themselves. My mother was a widow, and so most of my life she raised me with the help of my older sister. And so these women who are juggling, and my older sister had a son, so they're juggling all these balls, and there was no outlet for them. There was no, and I don't know obviously who they confided in, but I would not be surprised if it was no one. If they just forged on every day as if everything was okay, cried silently, moved on, and kept it pushing. And a part of breaking generational curses is not just going to college. It's not just becoming a millionaire or buying a house. It's undoing some of the trauma that our parents never talked about. And for me, having friends who just, they didn't offer anything aside from, we got you. To me, that felt like it doesn't matter whether it's good, bad, or indifferent. We love you all the same, and we will be here for you all the same. This is a safe space. So, sorry, that was a long-winded answer.
But thank you for your vulnerability and sharing that. I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head. You emulated and replicated what you saw and what you watched, and with your mother and your sister and nobody talking about things. So you are taking that first step to break that curse and saying, no, like this can't stay inside of me. And the power that exists in vulnerability, being able to, one, be open with other people, but two, the hardest part is being open with yourself and being vulnerable with yourself to recognize, like, so I can't do this alone.
Yeah.
Like, I can't handle this. I need to at least talk to somebody, anybody. So I appreciate that viewpoint, because I think so many of us, especially Black women, get trapped in that.
Yeah.
How has your view of wellness changed from where you are now versus where you were maybe 5 years ago?
Well, I now realize that wellness is not just face masks and bath bombs.
Right.
Because at first it's like, self-care Sunday, girl, let me get my bath bomb. No, self-care Sunday sometimes is reading, sometimes it's saging, sometimes it's sleeping, sometimes, you know, it's praying, sometimes it's journaling. It changes from day to day. I listen to what my body needs. I listen to what my mind is telling me. I try to address things that have been bothering me throughout the day. So I find myself writing, putting pen to pad a lot. So I have random notepads all over the place that I just write stuff down, and I'll come back to it sometimes. Sometimes I won't. Sometimes it helps just to get it out. And that's what self-care looks like for me now, because 5 years ago, like I said, it was, I'm going to the nail shop. Now, going to the nail shop is just a thing that I do. It's a chore, the same way I go to Target.
Yeah.
Now it's just a chore, it's maintenance, but it's not necessarily self-care for me. Self-care is much more internal instead of aesthetic.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with that. And sometimes it is a bath, but it's not necessarily like, let me go buy, because I used to go into a store that shall remain unnamed and drop $80 on a bath. Like, let me buy all these bath products.
Oh, I thought you meant like you go to the store to take a bath.
No.
I was like, let me.
No,
Wait a minute.
No, I would buy all these bath products, and it'd be like $80 worth of stuff, and it'd be good for like 1 or 2 baths. I'm like, spend $80 on a bath? Girl, you are not that dirty. So it's very different for me now, and I actually enjoy it. Like, I was looking here and I saw like the candles and the eucalyptus, and I'm like, oh, I feel right at home.
So in your journey, you know, kind of trailing back to hearing your story and how far you've come, the journey to help you get there through the process, what would you tell your younger self?
Trust the process. You're gonna have expectations of yourself, and you're gonna feel like it should be this way, and a million things have to go right in order for you to get the exact outcome that you want. A million things also have to go wrong, and that's okay. Like, even as I sit here right now, this version of myself does not exist without all of the things that went wrong.
And I think it's exemplified in all of the things that you've been able to do, from your early business with Red Hot Entertainment to being here now talking about Glasgow Place, and, you know, who knows what the future holds in terms of more ventures and booming businesses. So thank you so much for all of that vulnerability. I know that was kind of heavy, and we had some deep emotional moments. So to kind of lighten up the mood before we wrap up, I just want to ask some quick fire questions.
All right, I think I'm ready.
All right, so these were not planned. You didn't get these in advance.
I did not.
So, quick fire question number 1. What is heavy on your music playlist right now?
Jay-Z, like old Jay-Z though.
Okay.
Yeah, I've been listening to a lot of Blueprint and a lot of Reasonable Doubt.
Okay. If you're feeling bold, rap your favorite lyric.
Actually, this is not from old Jay-Z. This is from the Blueprint, Gift and the Curse. I was gonna rap Hobie Baby because that is one of my favorite songs, but now I'm not feeling bold anymore.
You it's just us. If I knew the song, I'd sing with you.
Touch the untouchable, shake the unshakable, break the unbreakable. It's holy, baby.
Love it, love it. All right, quick fire question number 2. If you could make a documentary about anything, what would it be and why?
Me. Because I know me the best, and I feel like, shit, we got a process. So it's content there.
Oof, all right. Well, you know, you got some B-roll here from your interview today.
Hang on to this.
Documentary.
I might need to hit you up for licensing agreements.
All right. Quick fire question number 3. What are you currently binging on Netflix?
Girlfriends and The Office. I know those are 2 like really opposite television shows,
Yeah,
but
kinda. Okay. So I had a conversation with someone else. Who is your favorite girlfriend character, or who do you relate with the most?
none of them. I don't relate with any of them. But Joan is my favorite, but it's, to be quite honest, biased because Tracy Ellis Ross is my favorite. Like one of my favorite people, period, hands down. If I could hang out with anybody for a day, she'd be at the very top of that list. But I don't know, I feel like I don't necessarily relate to any of the girlfriends because their lives are all kind of a mess.
All mess.
And mine is a mess in a very different way. But Joan is my favorite character, with a little sprinkle of Lynn. I do enjoy Lynn's character. There's something about Lynn that's just very like, okay, Lynn, she's very
free-spirited.
She's very much like, whatever. So just non-judgmental. So I guess if I had to strip actor from character, Lynn would be my favorite character.
Okay. I tend to gravitate towards William myself, but hey, we were married at some point, right? So maybe you haven't gotten that far. Sorry.
Well, no,
Spoiler.
I saw the show when it was on, but I'm just, getting caught back up,
Love it. Well, thank you so much, Cy, for joining us and sharing everything about Glasgow Place. I'll leave all of the details of how to get in touch with you in the comments, and so that, our viewers and our listeners can get in touch with you and buy some fancy high-end jewelry.
Little something, we'll be coming soon. Thank you so much for having me. This was an amazing conversation. So, and I felt like I was with a trusted therapist, so,
Thanks.